It's just a doll. What's the worst that could happen?
You want to play, motherfucker? Let's play.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dave Cave. I, as always, am Dave. Now, before we get started, to stay on top of all things horror and heroes, as it comes fresh out of the Dave Cave, hit that subscribe and the bell so you don't miss a minute. Today, we are talking the first entry in the Child's Play series that did not get a theatrical release, but the second that features Don Mancini yet again in the director's chair. And I actually had to go back and look at that. We'll talk about that in a minute. I couldn't believe that this was a Don Mancini film. But before we get into all of that, like I said, this was directed by Don Mancini. Really, the only names you need to know about in this movie are Brad Dourif, returning as Chucky, and Fiona Dourif, yes, his daughter, as Nika, a paraplegic who we find out why she's a paraplegic through the ongoings of the film. But really, that's all you need to know in this film, is you got Nika and you got Chucky, and how they come together is actually pretty awesome. And the movie kicks off with a very mysterious package coming from an unknown sender to a family that we haven't met before. And albeit they're quiet, they have their own dysfunctions, and that obviously will unravel through the course of the film. But really, we don't know why this Chucky doll has been sent to this family. We really don't. Obviously, we're going to find out. But what this movie did was, in the marketing, I remember this very clearly from back then, they made it seem that Curse of Chucky was not necessarily going to be a reboot, but that it was going to take the story in a different direction that possibly, more than likely, didn't follow Bride, Seed, and just completely tried to stay to the Andy Barclay 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, we now know that that's not the case, but the way they marketed this, you thought, okay, this is just a new doll. And there are a couple Easter eggs that, well, we learn are not Easter eggs. They come across as Easter eggs if you go into this movie the way the marketing wanted you to, where you went in thinking that this was basically Child's Play 4. If you go in thinking this is Child's Play 4, you get Easter eggs. You see, oh, when Nika is looking up stuff about Charles Lee Ray, looking up, looking up Andy Barclay, you get the whole, you see the hack and sack, you see Kent Academy, you see references to 3 and Bride, but you don't get anything talking really about Seed. We'll get to how they get all that wrapped up in a minute. Just hold on. The first thing that caught me on this film, and if you've watched any of my other Child's Play reviews, you know I'm a sucker for this shit, the intro. I like how it was very unassuming, but also brought back the creep factor. This film does that very well. It brings back suspense. It brings back the Jaws aspect of Chucky, where you see only hints of what he might be. I mean, we know, we're on the inside track of what Charles Lee Ray is, of what this Chucky doll could do, but they don't know. And they don't have him say a word. I think it's exactly the middle point of the movie. I think it's 45 minutes in. The first time Chucky, Brad Dourif, says a word as Chucky. And I loved that. We see the eyes go dilated. We see him reach for Alice. We have moments where we know he's something, because we know Chucky. We have a history with him as an audience. But we don't see any real menace legitimately, aside from like moments here and there. We get him putting the rat poison in. We get little moments, but we don't get full on seeing him animated and do shit. We're going to talk about the scene that we finally get to, because it's actually one of the low points of the film for me. But for right now, like I said, we're going to talk the intro for a second, because I like the intro. The intro is awesome, because then it just focuses on Chucky, and then you have the backdrop of the Sarah kill, suicide, not sure what happened, but we all know Chucky was involved, and the revolving around him, I loved it. It brought back the creep factor, and that is exactly the shot in the arm that this series needed. It needed to get back to the roots of what Chucky is supposed to be, and it does that very well. Thank fucking God. From there, you have Nika give this doll to Alice because she doesn't know why she has it. She thinks it's a post office mix-up, gives it to Alice, and that is the catalyst for keeping Chucky around, which is fine. And that leads right into the dinner scene. This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. I couldn't exactly remember on this watch what happened and where it went from there and who got what when. I knew that some of the characters were going to get to the end, or at least closer to the end. But I couldn't remember who the 3 or 4 characters that could have gotten offed at this scene. I couldn't remember for the life of me. And that was awesome, because it added to the tension. Because I'm like, they're not going to kill Alice, which is fine, whatever. But then you don't actually get a kill in the scene. There's a lot of tension building. Like I said, you don't get that in Bride. You don't get that in Seed. You get that in this film. You get them giving a shit about making Chucky scary. He's not goofy in this film. When Chucky cracks a joke in this film, it's dark. You're like, ugh, you feel dirty when you laugh at his jokes in this film because they're twisted. The humor is dark. The humor is not goofy, and that's what 4 and 5 missed, Bride and Seed. They missed that dark humor. And that dark humor, I'm all for it. Dark humor, sick, fucked up Chucky, that's my shit all day, every day. And another thing that this scene gives us is the hints that maybe this Chucky doll is part of a greater universe. But then when you start getting the idea that this is part of the greater universe where it's all 5 of them are part of it, you have Ian step in and be like, no, I remember Good Guy Dolls. The reason we all know Good Guy Dolls is because he doesn't say this, but there was basically this Tickle Me Elmo of the 1980s that was the Good Guy Dolls. And that was just massive craze for these dolls, and you couldn't get your hands on them, and it was just bananas back then. So you get that pushed down to the side, which I really, really liked, because it still kept you guessing. Like I said, if you go in thinking this is 4, you're not really sure that this is 6. That brings us right up to the scene where we get to see Chucky move for the first time. I mean, really move. We get to see Brad Dourif embody Chucky. What's so cool about this scene is, one, it's placed at the backdrop of a thunderstorm. Cool. But then you have Chucky sitting there, and you don't see the smile first. You hear him laugh first, and then it grows in his face. That was awesome. I appreciate very much what they were trying to do with this scene. But what gave me whiplash in the scene was in no more than like 30 seconds, we get 3 Chuckies. We get the good guy Chucky. We get a cracked out version of Chucky where his eyes are all kinds of messed up. And then we get this kind of like soft features, kind of weird girl Chucky. So they couldn't decide in 30 seconds of footage which doll to use. So that took away from the scene. Otherwise, that scene was pretty damn awesome. From there, you lead up to the reveal. And by the reveal, I mean the fact that this is the exact same doll that not only was from Bride of Chucky, but was also from Seed of Chucky. And I remember when I first watched this movie, way back when it came out, and I first watched it, and you find out that all those Easter eggs were not Easter eggs. All those things they were talking about were not Easter eggs. That everything was actually in this universe. I remember pausing and running to my wife and freaking the hell out. Saying, oh my God, it's part of the original series. This is so awesome. She didn't really get behind it, but I was so damn excited I had to tell somebody. But on this watch through, I had to take a step back because, as you know, I've been watching all of these in succession. Boom, 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 boom. I have fresh in my brain going into this movie the I'm Chucky, the killer doll, and I dig it. He has this whole big in Seed of Chucky about wanting to stay a doll. And then he tells Barb in this movie, Alice is mine. Now I understand that we get kind of an explanation for that in Cult. But as it stands right now in Curse, that line didn't make a lot of sense for this same iteration of Chucky. This is really in the movie where it goes off the rails. Once we learn that this is the same Chucky that was from Seed, you start to get a little bit of carelessness when it comes to story and stuff like that. But also you get some really cool points. So we're going to get to those. Just hold on. There's still much to be salvaged for this movie. So from there you get Chucky stabs Barb in the fucking face. And it is a great kill. I love the simplicity of it, but also the of it. What I don't love is that we get this fully CG'd Chucky. Fully fucking CG'd Chucky. And he looks terrible. Chucky absolutely looks best when he is practically done. I don't care how goofy it kind of looks. Chucky looks best when he is practically done. Do it that way. Otherwise, Chucky looks pretty damn good in this movie. But that little CG mess up. Oh, so bad. From there, you get some kind of cat and mouse between Nika and Chucky, because Chucky has gone full, I don't give a shit, I'm going to go after everybody. Hey, guess what? My face is all stitched up. So Chucky goes after Nika, and Nika meets up with Ian. Ian's like, what the fuck is happening? By the way, I have this camera in the doll that I wanted to spy on my wife to see if she was banging the maid. And guess what? This is awesome. I put it in there. So you get this scene where Ian is checking the camera for the doll. Not once does he stop and think, this camera's moving around. I put this thing in an inanimate object. Is it in a doll? It should be sitting in a room. The only time that he really kind of seems to give a shit is when we see Alice in the camera. He doesn't care that Chucky, spied on the girls here and was there and went up and jumped on the couch with him. He doesn't care. Doesn't make sense. Like I said, we're getting hints of Mancini going off the rails. And from there, we get yet another gripe that I have with this movie is the selective anatomical correctness. Now, you have Chucky, he's juicy around his eye, where he's, been sewn back together and he's all messed up. Nika knocks his damn head off. And it's like a doll head. And it rolls. There's no blood at all whatsoever. What? In other movies, like Seed, immediately when Tiff is brought back as a doll, she's got internal organs when the dude opens up her back. What? And after all that, we get to some of my favorite shit in this movie. And that is the tie-in. The why Chucky is going after this family. Why Chucky gives a shit. If he is the seed of Chucky, why he comes after this family. And we get the explanation that he knew them. And that he was obsessed with their mom. And that she was the one that tipped off the cops. And that's what started the whole series. I absolutely love that. And then you have the fucked upness that Charles Lee Ray is the reason that Nika is a paraplegic. Holy shit. I loved that reveal. That whole explanation. I loved it. I love the way that they tied in. Like I said, you get so much of Don Mancini giving a shit in this movie where he didn't in Seed. And I was so there for it. I loved it so much when he gave a shit in this film. Now, what's unique about this one in terms of the Child's Play universe is that Chucky wins. Full on wins. He doesn't have a kill scene. He doesn't die. I mean, in the after credits he kind of dies. But he does not die in the runtime of this film. And then he gets to Alice. And he does the whole curse. He wins. That's awesome. Whereas it's different from 2, where 2 he wins. I'd say it in my review there. He wins. He absolutely won in 2. But because of the whole logic of, the voodoo, he wasn't able to transfer his body into Andy. But he wins. Gets to Alice. Transfers his body. Boom. And then you have that jump scare. The goddamn grandma jump scare. Forgot about it, and it made me almost shit my pants. I know I just said that I liked the way this movie wrapped up. Mostly. I have a question. And if you can answer it in the comments below, you're more than welcome to. But why in the bloody hell are Tiffany and Chucky working together? When you find out that Tiffany was the one that sent him to this family. Why? Last time we saw Chucky and Tiffany together, he put an axe into her forehead. I'm not making peace with that person. Ever. Anybody puts an axe in my forehead, we're not talking. We're not friends. And with that scene, you get a little bit of callback to Bride of Chucky, where Tiff tricks a cop into taking Chucky's body from an evidence locker, and then she slits his throat. That cop is important, and we're going to talk about him in the cult review. So you end Curse of Chucky. You have the seriousness / scariness of Chucky in 1, 2, kind of in 3. But then you have the look, which is one of my favorite looks for Chucky, is you have the look in Bride and Seed. So you're good going out with that. And then you get to that awesome ass after credit scene. Chucky gets delivered to the Barkley family. Well, to Andy. We get a little bit of backstory on him, what's going on with his mom, the The fact that his mom is with Mike Norris, which was awesome. And then you get Chucky, comes out of the box, and Andy lights his shit up. Awesome. But it doesn't make sense if you keep in line with what happened at the end of the film, where you have Chucky inhabit Alice, do the whole voodoo, and inhabit her. I understand that they kind of explain it in Cult. They do explain it in Cult. They do. But when you look back at Curse, he doesn't say the same curse as he does in Cult to do the whole Voldemort Horcrux. You don't get that. And it doesn't make sense, but you can kind of forgive it because nobody expected Curse to do as well as it did, albeit at home, enough to warrant someone wanting more Chucky. And really, for me, I was fine being done. I was fine with this being the end of the series. It made sense. You had Chucky try to, get Alice. And for all we know, as we saw in, Child's Play 2, maybe he was in the body too long. And then he said, fuck it. I'm going to go kill Andy Barkley. Nika just got into my head. I'm going to go kill that little son of a bitch. So he gets himself sent to Andy to try to kill him. And Andy kills Chucky. End of series. Boom. Close it. Shut it down. Put it in the vault. That's not what happened, and we got Cult. And without Cult, like I said, those two scenes that end the movie, the after credits and the actual ending, they don't gel, but luckily they made it work. So by the end credits of this film, I was very happy to be able to say that I enjoyed it actually more than the first time I watched it. Probably because I was coming fresh off a seat on this turn, and I just needed some fresh air, and holy shit, you get a lot of that in this film. I very much like that it goes back to its horror roots. It tries to be scary. It tries really hard to be scary, and it's not too hokey in the way that it does it. You get some kind of jump scares, but you get Chucky in like that Jaws effect, where you don't see Brad Dourif as Chucky for the first 45 minutes of the film. And even then, you still get kind of like he's in, he's there, he's not, he's around. You get that. But also, you get some very gnarly kills. I understand that they're kind of run-of-the-mill. You get an electrocution, you get a stab. You get kind of, nothing too spectacular, but they're well done. I very much like the kills in this movie. And you can't tell me that the priest kill was not awesome. Now, I've asked in my other reviews, but I gotta ask, what's your favorite kill in this film? I always like to know what kind of kills different people like. Do you like more simplicity? Do you like more complicated stuff? Really, the Father Frank is the most elaborate, but Barb gets a pretty solid kill too. So overall, I would say I keep Curse right where I put it in its ranking. I'm not going to tell you what the ranking is, but it stays there. You got scary, you got suspense, you got mostly a good look in Chucky. They try really hard to get the doll to look really good until he's in motion, then it gets kind of weird. Until he gets scary, then he looks good again. Whatever. But it's a good time, goes back to the Child's Play roots, and I dig it. If you've missed any of my other Child's Play reviews, I have links to all those in the description below. Go check those out, along with a couple other Child's Play related videos I've done. And also, be sure to check me out on Instagram and Twitter at @TheDaveCave_. I post over there when I am not posting here. And that is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much, as always, for stopping by the Dave Cave. I'll see you all real soon with that Cult of Chucky review. But until then, take care.